Welcome to the Bracket Factory and welcome to the latest thrilling episode, which is another one on the big V12 Speedster project. Now, if you saw the last one, you'll know that we've put the big bits in the chassis, the engine and the gearbox pretty much where they need to go. Bit of refinement needed, so we need to think about it, refine it, and then design some big brackets. So let's do that. So we're back on the big V12 and I've been staring at it for a long time and asking myself a number of questions. And the first question is, will the engine move further back in the chassis? And the answer is no, it won't. As it stands, the servo mechanism, I'm going to talk more about that later, is back up against this cross member. I think that's fine, because if we go to the front of the engine, pulley comes 7 inches out there, so the front of the pulley is still behind the center line, so the radiator will be slightly forward, very slightly forward, or on the center line, which is fine. That's what I'm looking for. So that's the first question. Second question, will the engine go any further down in the chassis? And the answer to that is yes, it will, because I've got a bit of clearance here between this and the chassis rail, about 40 mil. So what I'm going to do is drop the whole thing down by 30 mil, which means dropping this chassis mount down through this chassis rail. Obviously you can't just cut a chunk out of it, you've got to reinforce it and make it strong enough. But that's all entirely doable. So that was the second question. Third question, and quite a few people have asked this, is will I make the engine a stressed member? i.e., will it be bolted solidly all round to the chassis? And the answer is yes and no. I am going to bolt it solidly to the chassis, but only on 3 engine mounts, and the third engine mount, which will be this one, is going to be rubber mounted, and that is exactly as it is on the American LaFrance engine. So that rubber engine mount will be just here. It means that there will be a certain amount of compliance if and when the chassis twists, and it means you are radically reducing the risk of snapping your engine mount off your engine, which wouldn't be a great thing. Now the second question is, am I going to keep these chassis rails here? There's one there and there's one over there, and the answer is no, I'm not going to keep those for various reasons. One, they're not actually in line with each other, which is a real pain because I need to tie everything together. 2, they're not massively substantial, and 3, it's just all a bit of a compromise, and it's more work to remove them out and re-engineer it, but I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to basically chop out that and that one. It means relocating on this brake mechanism, which is unfortunate but entirely doable because it's only going back probably 30 millimeters, inch and a quarter, so that's fine. And I'm going to make it out of one piece, so it's going to be, and thicker gauge, so it's going to be nice and strong. So plenty to crack on with, so let's crack on. Right, now let's whip this steering column off and the engine. So now I'm going to notch these out, so I need to lift the box up. Right, we'll mark out where we need to cut, and I'll cut a bit more. We're not using this anymore, so this can come off with difficulty. Whip that out. course this is too high now. Right, the engine and box has now been lowered in the chassis to the tune of 30mm. Now, A, I like it that the centre of gravity is lower. B, I like it that this output shaft, the centre line of that is well below this chassis member line, which means I can have something going across the top of here to create a kind of complete hoop and tunnel, which makes it much more rigid. A slight concern is how low these chassis mounts are, sorry, the box mounts, engine mounts, for Christ's sake, they're quite low now, so they're going to be right down here, so they're going to drop down the side, stand around here. So they're going to have to drop down underneath here and come forward to there. Bit of a concern, and the fact that we've got all of this brake stuff in the way, and there's quite a few things going on in this area with the engine. But let's roll with it for the time being. If I make a provision to lower it, it doesn't mean it has to be lower, and I can always lift it back up off the rails again. Well, I can here. I mean, the design here is obviously going to be critical. So I think now my focus is going to be this rear cross member, because that is probably the most important bit. Right, it's now time to take all this brake assembly off, because that is coming out. Right, so I've got this big brake pulley assembly off, which is a big chunky nice thing, and I'm going to be reusing that. Although it's not going to go there because this is all coming out, so it's either going to come further backwards, or it might go further across in that direction depending on how the brakes pan out. This is the kind of main spindle for the handbrake mechanism, and it may actually stay there, because whilst it cranks forwards, I can have a vertical one. I probably can reach it from where I'm sitting, so that might stay. So to get this out, I need to finish getting these rivets out, take that one out, chop through there, I can whip that out. So let's do that. So that one came off without too much of a fight. Now for that side, bit easier, I think. Or is it? Right, other side removed. Quite a lot of work, because I had to remove this bracket as well. So it meant removing 11 rivet tops. But of course, with the Acme method, it was pretty quick. Another top tip is, let's say you're putting slots along at that angle, say in line with this. When you come in with a chisel, don't come in at this angle, come in at a slight angle, and then you'll basically slice them off sideways. So it's even quicker that way. And of course, you don't even need to use a chisel if you can get your cutting disc in at that angle. But if you do that, don't go gouging marks out your chassis member, and of course all of these ones you can't really get it in at that angle. So anyway, enough of that, enough of rivets and grinding and nonsense. Now I need to focus on this new cross member here, so let's crack on with that. Right, I'm sure you can work out what's going on here. That is the cross member. I like to modify it slightly. I actually originally made it a bit too deep, so so it's a bit shallower now. Time to lower the gearbox in and see how it looks. Right, there it is dropped in, and now we have the gearbox supported at the back, obviously, on this cross member, and the gear mechanism is just proud. It could go down another centimetre or so, possibly, and the engine is pretty much parallel with this section of the chassis rail, which is what I'm after. But of course, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to realise that there's going to be a very large force down on this. In fact, these are both pressing down, the gearbox is pressing down, so it's going to try and bend this cross member, bring these two sides together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fabricate a top section, which basically slots into there, and ties the whole thing together in a basically like a hoop, sort of thing you often find on the back of Formula cars. This bracket is in the way, so we're going to have to chop that off and make something which slots in there. So let's do that. Now I really would like to take this bracket off to cut this off, but there's no real space, so I'm going to have to do it in situ. Fortunately, I can rest the gearbox in here to do it, so I don't try and cut through the rope. So let's go. Right, bracket off, and I might just brush all this down while I'm at it. Right, time to offer up the closing bridge. So, doesn't fit in, which is not that much of a surprise, but if I hoist it up, right, now you can see how this is basically under compression across here. So I'll have to devise a good way of holding that in, but that basically forms a really solid ring around the back of the gearbox. Right, disconnected all of the tackle, lifting tackle, and standing back and having a look, and I'm pretty happy with the principle of the whole thing. So I was going to have these tabs overlapping, but wouldn't be able to actually get this cross member in. It has to kind of come from the front. So what I'll do is I'll fabricate tabs that come back and bolt to here, like an internal flange, either this side or that side, on both sides. And obviously this is going to be a fairly fairly meaty affair. This is actually 3mm this side, this is only 2mm. So this is all going to be in 3mm box, and I'm probably going to make it have sort of cutouts possibly there, and weld in internal webs to make it just extra bomb proof. Can't be too strong, this piece, even though it will have this loop part here. So I'm happy with the principle of that. If not the final dimensions, I'm happy with the principle. There'll be extra bits tying these rails together as well. So now I need to have a look at the front end. What I should also add is, obviously I haven't, the weight of the chassis, the weight of the engine is not on this, so I haven't got the final ride height, so it's going to go down a lot with that great brute on it. So anyway, I'm probably going to have to do a first stab of the mountings, build in a bit of slack, maybe make these cutouts a bit lower so I've got a bit more scope to play with. But I need to turn my attention to the front mounts. These are the old front engine mounts here, so these all need to be removed, and I need to work out how I'm going to support the front of the engine. Do I have something which extends across there and underneath, or do I try and fabricate some kind of cradle that sits across it? I'm kind of erring towards the cradle, I think, but move around. I'm erring towards the cradle, so it's tied in at the bottom, but it all depends on the front of the engine and what sort of space I've got to actually have a cradle going underneath it. So let's tackle that next. But before we look at that front cross member, we're going to have a quick chat about the brakes as promised, because it's probably an idea to have some kind of plan for those before I design too many massive brackets. So let's talk about the brakes and how they're going to work. So a couple of episodes ago, I removed all the Daimler braking system, and that basically consisted of a brake pedal right up here, and that pulled a series of rods and levers connected to like a junction box here, which then pulled on the brake levers at the back and acted on the actual corners of the brakes themselves. And it had a servo, and the servo was mounted here. I'll show a picture, and it was a vacuum servo, and basically what it did, it assisted the braking. So without the servo, the brakes would work. You press the pedal. With the servo, they worked even better. Now the Rolls Royce system works completely differently to that, so I'll try to explain how. The way the Rolls Royce brakes work is that the brake pedal isn't actually connected to the brakes. The brake pedal is connected to the servo, and this is connected to this lever here. So it basically pulls this lever, which then pulls this linkage over here. So we'll go around the other side and explain what happens next. And now this is where it all starts to get quite interesting and clever. So this lever is pulled here, and it pulls this shaft in this direction. Now it's got a series of cams in here, so when this lever is locked, it basically pulls these two drums together. Now what's happening is that when the engines, when the car is travelling along, this drum, if I turn the shaft, this drum is going round. And what happens when you put your foot on the brake, this drum engages with this drum. It's like friction plates inside. It's like a motorbike clutch. So it now starts to want to rotate this drum. And you've got these levers here which pull this arm forwards down here. So let's have a look underneath there. So when I rotate the drum, it pulls that lever forwards. Now when that lever goes forwards, it's connected to a cross shaft which goes through the bell housing. Now here is the cross shaft. This is the cross shaft here. And that, believe it or not, is a differential. So if I hold this and turn that, these parts go in the opposite direction. And this is a differential to balance front and rear brakes. So you basically be pulling on this bit. This would go off to the back brakes, this end here, and this end will go off to the front brakes. Now, the way I'm going to use it is that I will remove this differential, and it'll just be a solid shaft, and it will send the braking force back through to the other side. So let's go over to the other side again. So we're now back over the other side, and our shaft is poking out just at the bottom of here. So when I put my foot on the pedal, I pull that, engages this, pulls on that shaft, turns that shaft, and now that shaft can be connected to the existing braking system, which goes down here. So the brakes are literally as simple as that, but there are a few health warnings. Now the first health warning is that, of course, the brakes are still rod brakes, they're not hydraulic brakes, bear that in mind. Secondly, the drums on this Daimler aren't exactly enormous, so need to bear that in mind. And the third thing is that the brakes don't actually work when the car is stationary. Yes, you heard that right, the brakes don't work when the car is stationary, and that is because that drum is not rotating. So if the drum can't rotate, it can't apply any braking force when you put your foot on the pedal. Now you might think that doesn't really matter if I'm stationary, I don't need brakes, but what if you're driving uphill and you pull to a stop, put your foot on the brakes, you're going to roll downhill. Then of course the brakes will start to work, but by now you've already hit the car behind you. But no matter, don't forget we've got the handbrake. So that's what we're going to use. And if it was good enough for Rolls Royce in 1935, particularly on the Phantom, it's good enough for me. So now let's take a look at that front and cross member. Right, so we're now turning our attention to the front engine mount, and it looks like a cardboard bomb has gone off. And actually this particular cardboard is not cornflakes packets, it's actually IKEA furniture cardboard. I don't recommend buying IKEA furniture because it's an absolute ball ache, but the cardboard's good. And anyway, the reason I've got this cardboard is so I can make large pieces like this. And what this is the cross section of my front engine bracket. So let's stick it in place. So basically we'll go like that. And so it obviously hooks on the side of the chassis and has ledges for the engine mounts, and this lot here is clearance for the front of the engine. So let's go and offer it up to the front of the engine. So we're now looking at the front of the engine, and obviously we've got this big pulley in the way, and also we've got the leading edge of the block in the way, in line with this. So our new engine mount has to clear that lot like that, and over there we've got a slightly different, that's a slightly different sort of foot you can see for the engine mount. That's the third rubber mounted, I say third, it's the odd one out. You've got three solid ones and one rubber mounted one, so that's the rubber mounted one. Hopefully you can see that, it's not very light down there. So now that we've got this cross section, we'll turn this into a sort of three-dimensional design, I think. Right, so here we have our first cut, rough and ready front engine mount slash cross brace. So you can use a cardboard mock-up like this, not only to actually get all the dimensions right, but also to kind of consider how stress might have an effect on it. I mean, I can effectively put this in situ and lean on it and see where it breaks. And where it breaks is where pretty much where a metal one would break. So you can use it to assess, you know, what you might want to beef up. So anyway, let's go and drop it in situ and see what it looks like. Right, so here is the engine mount in situ, and we can sort of consider all the forces that are acting on this engine mount. So obviously you've got the force of the engine acting down there like that, and down there like that. And you've got the reaction force acting up there like that, and up there like that. So, because these forces are offset, it's trying to twist the engine mount round on both sides. So it's basically trying to pull this bottom cross brace apart. If you just kept on loading it, it would try and do that. It would also try, you've also got a shear force. These two forces are trying to shear it. So you've got a shear force up through there, this interface, and just here, trying to slice it off. So the obvious areas of reinforcement would be around here. The thicker this is, the better. These corners are it's not adding, this is not adding any strength here, this corner here. But if we drew a radius round there, like that, it would look nicer and save a bit of metal. We'd want to beef it up just here. We might consider putting gussets in. So very primitive gussets in here, either side of the engine mount. Or we could reinforce this. This bit is perfectly strong enough because this box section in sort of tension is going to be strong enough. And what we might consider is making it a little bit more elegant and looping this round underneath like that. So plenty more design to do on this, but fortunately the way that the bomb trolley is designed is going to help me a lot with this. So let's show you that. Now back over at the bomb trolley, this is more luck than judgment really, but these front engine mounts are actually removable. So what I can do is I can take the weight of the engine underneath the sump and take these out completely. That means when I'm designing my front engine mount for the chassis, I can offer it up in situ to make sure it fits perfectly. So I can offer it up and make sure that the engine mount widths are correct. I can make sure that the width of my webs are correct, and then I can offer it to the chassis and make sure the overall width is correct. So that's a distinct advantage. It's going to make life much easier for me. So there you have it, some very big brackets designed. I might tweak them slightly. I think that rear cross member, I might make that hoop all in one piece, stronger and simpler. And that front one, I'll probably refine it somewhat, make mounting flanges, etc. But we're getting very close to making it. And of course, that is what we're going to be doing next. But if you want to see that, you're going to have to tune in next time, as the old saying goes. So if you want to do that, please hit subscribe and you get to know about it automatically. If you've liked the video, please hit like, it very much helps. Please do leave a comment. I read every single comment and reply to every single comment, and there's been some absolute gold, so please keep it coming. If you want to support the channel, please consider getting one of these t-shirts. Link just there if you're on a PC. I don't think it works if you're on a telly, but you can go to the section at the front of the channel and you'll see the link there. But for now, I think that's just about it, so thanks for watching.